Taking the High Road podcast, presented to you by Divorce Buddy and CDC Certified Divorce Coach. Welcome to the show. In the Taking the High Road podcast, you'll learn simple strategies for creating a healthy divorce no matter what stage you are at. This podcast also has a companion book available from Amazon.com that includes valuable insights from 11 certified divorce coaches. To learn more, be sure to visit highroadanddivorce.com. Again, that's highroadanddivorce.com. Today we have on the show CDC Certified Divorce Coach Lori Burton-Cluxton, who's going to talk about detoxing the trauma of divorce. Lori, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I am well. I'm very excited. How are you, Jeremy?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks so much for joining us on the call.
Glad to be here.
So tell me a little bit about your practice, Advantage Point Coaching, what types of people that you help.
Advantage Point Coaching is a come-as-you-are location for women to find support, guidance, resources, solutions. I serve women who are in one of the three phases of divorce: pre-divorce, during the process of divorce, or post-divorce, and those who are also experiencing behaviors and or symptomologies of trauma or crisis that is interfering with their dailiness of life. I am a certified divorce coach and a certified trauma recovery empowerment coach. So I've specialized working with women over 40 so they have security, confidence, and hope, knowing that they have a happy, well-adjusted life and family.
Well, that's interesting. So you help people, or help women specifically, in all phases, whether it's pre-divorce, during divorce, post-divorce.
Yes. Serving people are just a passion of mine. And it's a goal for me that working with them, that they feel heard and walk away feeling a little bit better than when they came, and ultimately living their life authentically. That's huge. Just living their life authentically and with less regret.
Interesting. And I know a lot of people that they get into this field because they're inspired by their own personal experiences, their own personal life experiences. Maybe share with us a little bit about, what inspired you to get into this field and help people as a certified divorce coach.
Well, actually, high school as a peer tutor, I was in 10th grade, and I was asked to be a peer tutor. And I found out then that when asking people the right questions, that they found within themselves the right answers. And my friends would often turn to me for advice and say, "Hey, Lori, can I talk with you about this?" Or, "Please don't tell anyone about this, but what do you think?" Or whatever. And we would just brainstorm. And I just found myself taking a passion to it. And it just naturally and instinctively became my lifestyle and my career. And I found myself just drawn to it. And I often say my career chose me. Social justice matters of the world or my community, and standing in the gap for people, I guess what I want to say, really became important to me.
In your work, are there any particular common challenges, obstacles, misconceptions that you find people have that prevent them from achieving the outcome that you want to help them with?
Jeremy, that's really a great question. And actually, it's one I'm asked a lot. And sometimes I've pondered that. And breaking it down, I think, to the lowest common denominator, I have to say not believing in themselves or having faith in themselves, but believing more in what other people have to say about them or what other people think is the pitfall. Divorce happens to be, as people would know, is a major life crisis. And it can feel like they're hit by a train wreck in all areas of life: their work, their finances, their health, family, friends, romance, personal growth. And it's also such a grieving process. Everyone's emotions are running high. Lots of things are being said by a lot of people, some not so positive maybe, and it can just be exhausting. And some positive steps in kind of turning that around and believing in themselves and stuff would maybe detoxing their life from the negative things and the aggressive, intimidating, dominating, manipulative people or things in their life. And in fact, I'm sitting here looking at it. There's a sign in my office, and it says, "Before you diagnose yourself with depression or low self-esteem, because lots of people will say that to you maybe, or you're just depressed or whatever. But the science says before you diagnose yourself with depression or low self-esteem, first make sure you are not, in fact, surrounded by idiots. So lots of times you just have to eyeball your environment and just start kind of detoxing your environment and remove yourself from the negativity that is in your life and ask yourself, really, what am I inviting in? And remind yourself that you are what you eat, drink, watch, listen to, and make sure that they are healthy, positive, encouraging, uplifting, and then supportive, and surround yourself with the people that add value and energy to your life and people who, like you, believe in you.
Interesting. And you had mentioned sort of like a process or some ways to deal with trauma. Can you talk a little bit about that or what that process is?
Yes, Jeremy. With some women, once we've been chatting for a bit and we've been walking down the path together of their personal story, there may be a point that I will ask if I may interrupt based on some things that I've heard and ask if I may share a few tools that may help them feel better and empower them forward a little bit. And I begin by sharing that you are actually normal and normalizing their behaviors and symptomologies that they may have been sharing. And step one is common reactions to trauma, because they're going through a major life crisis. They're going through a traumatic time. So I have them read out loud, because when I stop them in their story, they're talking about some symptomologies and behaviors, and they feel like they're going crazy, or they've shared that with me, or somebody's told them that, or somebody's told them they're depressed, or somebody's told them that they're this or they're that. So I have them read out loud a list of some common characteristics to trauma. And so after they start reading off the list, they begin to see that they are experiencing normal responses to an abnormal event. And I'll say that again, that they are experiencing normal responses to an abnormal event. And you can just see them begin to relax and like, wow, and that just makes so much sense. And you can see that for a moment that they can realize that, yes, this too will pass, and I'm not going crazy. And so we just reinforce that their mind, body, and spirit is in a current state of high stress and, with healthy coping mechanisms that they will get through this. So with step two, another thing that I share with them on with a tool that they read is the impact. It's some bullet points are the impact on relationships with friends and family. And again, they're just some bullet points on how their friends and family may be responding to them and through this divorce process. And what it is their normal reactions, because people sometimes are uncomfortable about what to say or whether to talk about it in front of them. So then my client or the client is able to normalize it and begin to understand that this is a normal reaction to divorce from people. And they are able to understand that it is not a personal attack on me. I am not being singled out. That, people that go through divorce experience this from their families and friends. It isn't just me. So when they start to see themselves again on that page from friends and family, that, again, it makes them feel a whole lot better. Then moving on to step three, with that, I encourage an authentic, true, global, non-specific 10-second commercial. And the reason for that is it's so the person that is going through the divorce is not caught off guard by people coming up at the grocery store, at the gym, at school when you're with your kids, and by asking them questions about the divorce or the event or whatever it is that they're going through in this crisis. And they feel, because sometimes people begin to isolate or not go places because they don't want to answer questions. So by having a 10-second commercial, one that you it is just one sentence, something that you are prepared to say, because people sometimes can be rude and intrusive at times, and no need to hide from them. And when you're prepared to answer and you repeat that commercial every time, you feel safe and secured and empowered. And by the third time of repeating that commercial to the same person, they've concluded you aren't going to tell them. It's not their business. It's not their concern. And you can go on about your business and about your day. And it's very empowering. It's very, it's like, wow, that is what I needed. And along with that third step, I encourage or just ask, how would you feel about sharing that little commercial with your inside circle or with those that you trust? Because your kids, they need to know what to say because they're not equipped to know how to answer all the questions sometimes. And it's very comforting for them to know how to answer questions. And same with parents or grandparents or brothers and sisters or whatever. And then you just bring them around and write it on a 3x5 card and say, here it is. This is our commercial. This is our unified front. And this is what it said. And it's a great tool.
I mean, I think that's great advice, especially for not just for yourself, but for others that are impacted, to be able to have that sentence. So you don't have to go into negativity or this and that or blame and anything like that. And it really prevents us from going into those, those negative triggers or those negative emotions.
Right.
So do you have any suggestions, any advice in terms of do's and don'ts or other tips that people might have that you may offer?
Yes. Some things that people can do. I like to kind of start with some don'ts. For one, don't be afraid to call the police. And police reports are important in some cases. They're not valid for all cases, but in some cases they're very important. And in the court process, they're very important in establishing a paper trail for court documentation. So don't ever be afraid to call the police. And it also sends the message that you're going to be proactive and you're resourceful and you're not going to be harassed and you're standing up for yourself and your family.
So you're talking about if there's a situation of safety is feeling threatened or they're physically abused or something like that. We're not talking about not dropping off the kids 10 minutes late or something like that.
Correct. There are some cases in my line of work, since I deal with trauma and different things like that. There's domestic violence. There's, there's CPOs involved. There's different things like that. And it's not your cut and dry divorce where, there's safety is at higher risk and different things like that. So, or stalking orders or other things like that. So never be afraid to call the police. Number two is another don't is do not engage in the negative when you are baited. Lots of times people will bait through sending a nasty gram is what I like to call them, through email or text or on the phone. And I encourage do not argue with the spouse, with your spouse, with the father of your children or the mother of your children. Don't do this in person or in front of the kids. It's just not worth it. Your focus is on the children and the future. And I like to say if you cannot exercise this discipline and refuse to engage in the negative, you could lose custody of your children. I cannot harp on that enough. Another is I want to say never badmouth your ex in front of your children. This may seem like the same thing, but it isn't, because I want to carry that in your own home or in front of others when you're with your friends or when you're with your family. Taking the high road is better for the children, and it won't come back to bite you later. Your children are half of your spouse, and they see themselves as half of your spouse, and they might feel ashamed of themselves because they hear you, the negativity, and they wear that as if the things that they are hearing, that they are half that. And, the psychological warfare that plays on them. And let the child form their own opinions and try to answer their questions about the situation as respectfully and as age-appropriate as possible. And hate has no place in the family home. It just does not. Do's. Do utilize your community resources. There are some wonderful community resources and organizations there to help and assist with free services and overcome the fear or the pride of asking for help. We all need it from time to time, and your turn to help others will come, and you can assist them and pay that forward. Have regular coaching sessions to help you keep your eye on your goals and to assist you in reaching your desired outcomes. Another do is have a resource list of professionals that are competent in their field. Those community resources can help you with that, and your coach can help you with that, and have a list of resources. There's other professionals that you may need that are competent in their field. Another do is please live with integrity. Do not distort the truth or behave in a manner that can be used against you in court. Do remember that attitude is everything. Life is 10% what happens to you and 90% on how you respond to it. So choose optimism and to live in a positive manner, not only for yourself, but for your children. Do understand that you can only control what goes on in your own home and the time that you spend with your children. So provide loving limits and structure. The only thing I want to say is you cannot control what goes on when they are on a visitation with their father or with their mother. You can only control what goes on in your own home. Your relationship with your child is your relationship with your child, and the relationship they have with their spouse is the relationship with their spouse. And you should not or try not to intervene. They'll just resent you for it later. Those are some of my do's and don'ts.
Those are great. Definitely some good tips there. Now, what about just say one lesson, one really important thing that you think everybody should consider or everybody should be cognizant of? What would that be?
Mine would be for them to acknowledge and to recognize and to believe that they are the expert in their own life and that they always have choice. So, for instance, when something happens, look at that and think, what are my choices here? What are my options here? What are the resources within these options? What do I need to do? What's missing? What's going to get me to where I want to go? Is this acceptable? Can I change it? I mean, some things we can't change. And who will walk with me through this? And again, find somebody, that's going to be positive, supportive, and uplifting that's going to walk with you through that. And once you realize that you're not backed into a corner on an issue or a decision, and that there are choices, and that there are options in those choices with experts to assist you on the decision-making, it's not all just you. It can be so liberating, and that you'll be able to make it through that, especially when you understand your triggers through all of those things, because there's some very common triggers as people are going through stuff. But just knowing that you are the expert in your own life and that you will always have choice.
I like that a lot, because life is about choices, 10% about what happens and 90% about how we react to it.
Yes.
No, that's fantastic. Yes. Well, Lori, I really appreciate you joining us. If somebody wants to learn more about you or contact, what would be the best way for them to go about doing that?
They can always call me at 513-445-4842. They can reach me at advantagepointcoaching.com. Then there's my Facebook page, Facebook Advantage Point Coaching. There's LinkedIn. You can find me by my name, Lori Burton-Cluxton. And then there's Twitter at Lori Advan Point. And then we can also Skype. So lots of ways. I love to chat and connect, and I just have a passion with reaching and connecting with people. So anyway, text the number I gave out. They can text that number as well as call that number. So lots of ways to connect with me.
Thanks, Lori. And I'll say that there's a lot there, so I'll just repeat the phone number and the website, 513-445-4842, and then www.advantagepointcoaching.com. Well, thank you so much, Lori.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you for joining us today on the Taking the High Road podcast. Be sure to stay tuned for the next episode. And if you're interested in learning more about the companion book available from Amazon, visit highroadindivorce.com. Again, that's highroadindivorce.com. Thanks again.